When you're on that side of the bars, and there's no way, there's no hope, there's no crack, there's nothing, there's no light, you give up. I decided the easiest way to kill myself would be to suffocate myself through hanging. I didn't even think about it, I just jumped. The pain was agonizing. I lost the sensation in my arms. I couldn't even lift them to try to pull myself up. I started to spin. Just the nature of the way the rope was made, it was unwinding. And it made my feet kink the stainless steel sink, which woke my cellmate. He jerked me down.
I don't know what he was thinking when he did that. I was in shock. Everybody was in shock.
Now I had to try and explain my actions to my wife and to my father, why I reached that low. But once I realized who was in my corner and who was with me, that they supported me and they loved me, I regretted that decision.
Strengthened by their support, Jamie was ready to prepare for the fight.
When a woman cries rape, the system responds. And I knew that I was going to be facing the steepest uphill battle of my life.
To prepare for the case, he provided me with names of witnesses I was to call, get them subpoenaed, and that took a few months to do.
The defense was the truth. The defense was proving that the event never took place.
A trial is a moving target, so you never know what's going to happen. We had good, credible evidence to call to rebut what she was saying. No one could look into the crystal ball, but we were fairly confident.
Jamie had already spent more than 6 months in detention when the trial began.
Essentially, the case against Jamie was a statement that was dated the 29th of April, 1996. She was alleging that the events in question actually happened at the end of February.
In her statement, Fordham reported that on February 28, 1996, Jamie Nelson, an ex-boyfriend, had sneaked into her apartment building in the early morning hours, waited in ambush, then viciously attacked her. She said she was thrown around her apartment like a rag doll, kicked repeatedly, and raped.
There was a lag in 2 months between the date that she alleged the attack and the date that she went to the police. I don't know if that throws any red flags up for anybody in this room, but it certainly does for me.
In court, that would make little difference given the power of Fordham's testimony.
She did absolutely everything she could to draw as much sympathy from the court. Kathy knows that society drapes victims of sexual assault with the most sacred robes we have as a society. So she knew she was well protected by that system, and all she had to do was play the victim. And I think she did it a little too well. She cried at the right points, she took breaks at the right points, she got furious at the right points. It was just as if she was doing everything off of a script.
Couldn't believe that they were believing everything she was saying.
I was watching the judge's face, and I saw him drinking everything in.
During the course of the trial, we called evidence with regard to the family court matter that was going on with regard to Dustin.
I firmly believed that I was given, or at least I hoped I was given, the same consideration, the same equitable chance to tell my story.
Essentially, the case for the defense was twofold. Number one, Jamie testified on his own behalf and denied that the event ever took place. And secondly, that we had placed them on notice of alibi.
It bothered me, too, for them to state that my testimony was that I wasn't credible because I'm his wife, and maybe I would lie for him. What reason would I have to lie for him? If he did something like that, he deserves to go to jail. But he didn't do anything like that. You know, I do not need to be with someone who abuses women and beats people up, you know?
The medical report from her attendance at the hospital was used by both the Crown Attorney and myself.
We had doctors saying she wasn't in distress. She never suggested she was raped. She didn't present with the injuries that a rape victim would have. So nothing fit her story.
His father and I and my parents, we all thought, but there's just no way he can be convicted. There's just no proof of anything.
The trial would last 9 days. Finally, the outcome was at hand.
When he started to read his judgment, about 15, 20 words into it, I saw Ken hang his head. So there was something that the judge said that I didn't pick up on, but Ken obviously did.
The judge found that although there was inconsistencies in her statement and her evidence was not perfect, he favored her evidence over that of the defense and convicted Jamie.
I find Mr. Nelson guilty on all counts.
It never entered my mind that I would be convicted. How can you be convicted of something that never took place?
Judge Fraser imposed a 3.5-year sentence to express the denunciation of sexual assault charges against women. He also evoked the provision which prevented Jamie from applying for parole until 50% of his sentence had been served.
He did that as an extra measure to instill confidence to Kathy Fordham, to reassure her that the justice system worked.
Everybody, I believe, that was there, family-wise, just cried and could not believe it.
I knew that at that point the life that I had was gone. The last time I saw any member of my family was the day that I was sentenced. And then I was taken away from them.
The Jamie Nelson case to me was every defense counsel's worst nightmare come true. The client that in your heart of hearts you feel he's innocent, he's been honest with you from the beginning, you have independent evidence to support what he's saying to you, and then gets convicted. It's just a horrible experience, and it's one that you live with night after night after night, and you replay the trial. What should I have done? What shouldn't I have done?
I firmly believe the judge was predisposed to finding me guilty just based on the fact of my past contact with Kathy Fordham. The first opportunity I had to speak with Ken about it was later that afternoon in the basement of the courthouse when he came to see me before I was transferred to the detention center. He just hugged me and he told me that we're going to find a way to get out of this, to clear me.
It was a long way home. We lived 45 minutes, an hour out of Ottawa, and it seemed like it took hours to get there. I think one of the hardest parts is, trying to realize what just happened, trying to figure out what went wrong and what made them make that decision, what made the judge believe her, I was dumbfounded. The system that was supposed to protect and serve and put the bad guys away. Instead of the bad guy being put away, the good guy got taken away this time.
From my research into miscarriages of justice, in a case where there's an allegation of sexual assault, there's often DNA that can sometimes rule somebody out. And in Jamie's case, because no sexual assault occurred, there was no DNA. It became a matter of he said, she said, and given the political climate of Ottawa at that time also, the alleged victim was considered more believable than Jamie, and he was convicted of something that never occurred.
Knowing that he had done nothing wrong, knowing that he was that innocent man, I think was the hardest part. You think about prison, what goes on in a prison, I was scared for him.
Every federal inmate starts their journey at Millhaven Assessment Unit so they can determine what your correction plan is going to be. I was subjected to phallometric metering, and what that is a mercury-filled balloon is placed around the base of your penis. It's plugged into a computer, and then the individual is shown, they're called postcards, to see what you respond to. Consensual sex, forced sex, all kinds of different variations of sex. If you have a response, penis enlarges, the mercury filled senses the change in pressure, it gets recorded somehow in the computer. They analyze that and come up with some kind of a basis to determine what level of degree of deviant you are. And at the end of the day, I came to learn that I had 0 to no response to all of the postcards except for the consensual sex. It was determined that I would need to do 2 programs, anger management and a serious sexual behavior modification program. I remember challenging the doctor that performed the test, and I said, if I have 0 to no response, how can you justify that I need these programs? And he says, well, You have to be one of them. Low, medium, or high. You know, you have to be one of those brackets of sex offender. I did the anger management program. If there was anything I could do to help myself control anger, rage, and emotion, I wanted to do it. With respect to the sexual behavior modification program, I would not do it. I was there for approximately 2 months, and I was mothered, which is a word they use, you know, to define your home institution, to Joyceville Institution. I knew that I was approaching something fearful because everybody that was on the van with me that day got suddenly quiet. And I remember thinking, wow, this place has everybody scared. It was very foreboding. It's like they knew what was coming. I didn't.